Act 5, Scene 5, and another crucial scene to revise. We see Macbeth fully armed, ready for whatever is coming towards him. He's in the midst of a speech talking about how he is invincible again. And he's interrupted by a scream off stage, and the doctor comes in and says that Lady Macbeth is dead. It's not clear at this point how she's died, but Macbeth is left alone contemplating a very, very lonely future. He briefly grieves for his wife's death. And then very quickly after that, another blow comes when the announcement of Burnham Wood appearing to have uprooted itself and is advancing on Dunsinane. So Macbeth is left very much afraid at this point, not really sure how it's happening, but still wishing to deny it. He says, well, okay, but I don't have to fear anyone who is born of woman. Macbeth starts with an arrogance here. He is demanding that the banners, so the things that represent him as the king, are hung out on the castle walls to basically show everyone that he is here and he is prepared to fight. He says, were they not forced with those that should be ours, we might have met them therefore beard to beard and beat them back home. What he means here is the fact that the English army aren't necessarily the threat, that if everybody in Scotland was united behind him, they would be able to beat them back. They'd be able to get rid of them. They would be able to defeat them. But they're forced with those that should be ours. So the fact that the Scottish army has united with the English army has put him in somewhat of a perilous position. As he's thinking about this, and he's thinking about how he needs to prepare for battle, there's a shriek off stage, and he says, what is it? And Satan says it's the cry of a woman. And Macbeth, quite interestingly, says he'd almost forgotten the taste of fears. He's almost forgotten what it was like when noises startled him. He says, the time has been my senses would have called to hear a night shriek, and my fell of hair would at dismal treatise rouse and stir as life were in it. I have supped full with horrors. So he's talking and referencing back to when he committed his first murder, and the owl shrieked and Lady Macbeth was frightened and he thought he heard somebody cry out, and he was alarmed by the fact that he thought they'd woken up, and he said, I'm almost immune to it now. It's the fact that actually noises used to scare me, but I've come so far down this road that I'm not even frightened anymore when I hear anything. But the line, I've supped full with horrors, does remind us of the feast where he has seen Banquo. So it's now beyond the physical, it's beyond things that he can rationalise that scare him. There was a time when the owl shrieking or somebody screaming might have made him jump, but he's so far beyond that now that he just has nothing left in him. He's frightened, but at the same time, he's not frightened of anything. There's a real contradiction in his character. Lady Macbeth is now pronounced dead. The Queen, my lord, is dead. And we get this beautiful speech from Macbeth, this very poetic reminiscence of his earlier control and his earlier confidence in himself. And we see this quite melancholy soliloquy. He says, she should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays of lighted falls, this the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And it is a wistful speech in a way. He's lamenting not just the death of Lady Macbeth, but his entire loss of purpose. Everything that he has done has come to nothing. She should have died hereafter. Their dreams, their ambitions, everything they gained should have gone on. It should have died in another time. And he says, there would have been a time for such a word, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. So there would have been a better time for her to die, and it's not now. He's lamenting those things that have passed. And then he goes on to say this quite beautiful phrase, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player. And there's quite a famous soliloquy turned poem about 7 stages of man, which is written, I think it's in Much Ado, but I might be wrong, where Shakespeare pens about the 7 stages of man, and he talks about how fleeting life is, and we're all players on a stage, and we just have to play our part. It's called All the World's a Stage. And this is almost a very similar idea, that we have this brief moment in time, we are a brief candle, and it's quite deep when you think about it. He talks about we're just shadows moving through, this world that is huge, and we don't know about it. And he's realizing, quite as a contrast to his earlier scenes and what is going to come, his own mortality, the fragility of human nature, and how quickly life can be snubbed out. He talks about it strutting and fretting his hour upon the stage, how brief our time on this earth is. And he says it's signifying nothing. It's a very sad speech amongst this very action-packed scene, Act 5, a very action-packed. We've got the constant flicking between Macbeth and his castle and the English army, with Malcolm and Syward leading, getting ever closer. And we get this poignant moment to pause and reflect on the nature of life. It's very philosophical. It's very Hamlet-esque in the way that it is quite self-indulgent as you realise what everything is for. The messenger interrupts and brings the news that he believes Birnam Wood has somehow moved to Dunsinane. He talks about how he thought he saw the wood begin to move. And Macbeth's immediate reaction is that he's a liar, that the messenger must have got this wrong. And he says, if you speak false, upon the next tree thou hang. So he says, if you are lying to me about this, I will kill you. And he says, I'm really cross about this, but he begins to doubt the equivocation of the fiend that lies like truth. He's beginning to understand that the witches have tricked him. And he quotes them, he says, fear not till Birnam Wood do come to Dunsinane. And now a wood comes toward Dunsinane, arm, and out. He now sees the fact that he has been tricked, he has been lied to, he has been played, and he is angry. And then he says, if this which he avouches does appear, there is nor flying hence nor tarrying here. And he realizes that he's stuck. And a little bit like when he said, I'm in so far steeped in blood that to wade over would be as tedious as come back. He's talking about this, I've got no options. I've only got one thing I can do, and that is just keep going on the path that I've chosen, because to turn around now to try and do something different is going to have exactly the same outcome. I'm at a crossroads, but there are no options for me. I just have to continue on the path that is happening. And his last lines, and wish the estate of the world were now undone. Ring the alarum bell, blow wind, come, rack, at least we'll die with our harness upon our back. And so this is very reminiscent of King Lear, another one of Shakespeare's plays, where come wind blow rack in King Lear is the cry of a hopeless man. It means his time is coming to an end. And we can see this here. Macbeth is absolutely at the mercy of the English army and of nature. His story is very much nearly told. And so this is a really beautiful scene, and it's a scene of a lot of different things that you can capture. Think about that moment that Macbeth receives the news of Lady Macbeth's death. Think about how he laments the life they could have had, the kingdom that he thought they would be at the helm of. And remember to include those key quotes, those out, brief candle, those amazing moments where he really reflects on the nature of life. Think about if you were the director, how would you direct it? How would you have him deliver this speech? Where would you have him pause? What tone would you have him use? Would he be sad about her death? Would he be angry? Would he be preoccupied? Think really carefully about the Macbeth that you want to portray on the stage. Think about writing about it. Imagining you are Macbeth hearing about the news of your wife's death, but then also of Birnam Wood moving towards Dunsinane. Write a eulogy, which is a piece of writing that praises someone or something highly, if they've just died. Think about if you were going to read that at Lady Macbeth's funeral. What would you want to say about her? What would you want to capture about the spirit of Lady Macbeth and who she was to you? Try to think about those earlier positives about their relationship together. He clearly really loved her. He was calling her his dearest partner in greatness. Think about the life that they've lost together and how you can capture that in writing.